Welcome, everyone, to the Underground Dhamma Podcast, episode 13. My name is Juan, and I am joined here with my co-host, Joana. Hello, Joana.
Hello, Juan.
Hi there. So today it is just me and Joana. We've been joined by guests recently, which is great, and we'll probably be doing that a lot going forward. It's those episodes are always fun, aren't they, Joana?
Yeah, they're usually pretty interesting.
Yes, it's nice to get multiple perspectives about any given issue. And in the future, I'd like to have more guests and have everyone tackle like Dhamma questions, which would be pretty cool.
Yes, I think it's really interesting to like bounce ideas off other people so that we can like broaden our understanding through other people's viewpoints.
Yes, I think that's very important and it's much needed. Usually we're all just very attached to our own perspective and we think our perspective on reality is correct. And so, yes, definitely it's nice to see other people's perspectives on matters. I did have I wanted to continue or recontinue the tradition of asking you a koan. One day, Joshu, a famous Zen character, asked his teacher Nansen, he asked him, what is the way? And Joana, I would like to know what you think about that question. How would you answer?
What is the way?
And by the way, I have the easy part of this of this segment. I just get to ask the question.
Well, the breath.
That's a really good answer. It reminds me of the 7 factors of awakening, how it starts with Satipatthana, Sati, and Sati starts with the breath. So, and the Buddha said, this is the specific way to the end of all suffering. So, hey, I'll take that answer. That's a good answer. I like it. I wanted to show you what the teacher said. Would like to see?
Yes.
So here we have it. I don't know if you can see my cursor, Joana.
Yeah, I can see.
Perfect. So Joshu, here it says, Joshu earnestly asked Nansen, what is the way? Nansen answered, ordinary mind is the way. Joshu asked, should I direct myself toward it or not? Nansen said, if you try to turn toward it, you go against it. Joshu asked, if I do not try to turn toward it, how can I know what is the way? Nansen answered, the way does not belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is delusion. Not knowing is a blank consciousness. When you have really reached the true way beyond all doubt, you will find it as vast and boundless as outer space. How can it be talked about on a level of right and wrong? At these words, Joshu was suddenly enlightened. What do you think of the teacher's answer, Joana?
There's a lot there, especially when he says, the way does not belong to knowing or not knowing. Knowing is delusion, and not knowing is a blank consciousness.
Which that really just means unconscious.
Wait, not knowing is unconsciousness?
Unconsciousness.
Kind of like the way that humans do things without understanding why they do them.
Yeah, I could say that. That would be correct. You could also go like all the way. Yeah, that's probably right. You could even say like avijja. Avijja is unconscious. Not knowing, but you're right. That's how people are living their lives, present company, at least myself included. Uh,
Knowing is delusion. So if you think that you know something, you're actually wrong.
at least from how Nansen was talking about it, that's correct. I'm guessing he's talking about that the knowing is just a construct, anyways, and not knowing is like unconsciousness. You're insentient, unaware, fully. So, like, he was basically trying to keep him away from two extremes that people go into: knowing and becoming deluded, and not knowing and being fully unconscious. And then he says, when you really reach the true way beyond all doubt, you will find it as vast and boundless as outer space. And that kind of reminds me, Joanna, of when we talk about, you hear me say it a lot, that there's no separation. And before we were doing this podcast, I was thinking about there's no separation because there's no I guess no knowing or not knowing. That would be a good way to say it. Because knowing, you're creating an object. And as soon as you create an object, you can't have an object without separating.
This sounds like very, a little bit complex.
Yeah, it is. It seems very complex. Although he did answer initially, ordinary mind is the way, which that's the main thing he was saying, is that it doesn't have to get complex, because that's probably how the knowing becomes delusion. It starts to get complex. But he tried to tell you immediately that this ordinary mind is the way. And, I guess he's pointing out that the normal person is not even aware or attentive to this ordinary mind.
Well, you reminded me of the time when you said that the less words you use, the better.
Yeah.
And I feel like the more, because of all the words he's using, it seems as though it's complicated.
Yes. And you know what's interesting? In Zen, koans are also, people see them as cases, kind of like a case in court.
Okay.
When a case happens in court and there's a ruling, a judgment, that becomes the basis. It's like, oh, okay, you can even cite it. Like, this happened in this ruling, this is how it was ruled. So you can use it to help your whatever your case is. Well, that's how they see these Zen koans sometimes. And these koans, usually the case is that the master gives them the ultimate reality, the ultimate reality check with one answer, quick answer. And it's not something mystical. It's very direct. And if you don't get it with that first initial answer, that's very direct, so direct that you may think that he needs to explain more. If you think he needs to explain more, then you've already missed it. And so I think what happens is these students come and ask an ultimate question. The master usually answers, and it's very direct, so direct it seems ordinary, and they miss it. So they ask more questions, and then the teacher has to, and like I always would tell you, the more and more words you use, the farther and farther away you get. And yeah, I think you're right. That's probably why it sounds so complex at that point. But hey, it led to Joshu's sudden enlightenment, which I think that, to me, whenever I hear sudden enlightenment, I think of Sotapanna. I think it's like becoming a stream enterer. I don't know whether it's fully awakened to the point of a Buddha or an Arahant. That I don't know. But yeah, just our weekly or episodic koan.
You know what I was contemplating today?
What?
Well, actually, I contemplate this a lot while I drive to work, and then when I drive home. And I try to do metta when I'm driving because I've learned from the teachings, the Buddhist teachings, that when you do metta, it helps protect you and everyone around you.
Hmm.
But recently, I've found myself contemplating all the unconscious things all the unconscious beliefs and ideas that we think we know, and how those ideas drive us in the decisions that we make in everyday, ordinary life. And yet, we are not aware of these knowings and how they still drive us in the decisions we make every single day. Even though these knowings or these beliefs were created in us or
They were
taught
added.
to us,
Yeah.
as children even.
Yeah. I think Robert Anton Wilson talked about that like you have no, or maybe it was Alan Watts, that all the thoughts and things you think you know, they're not yours. They're they're what people taught you.
Yeah, and then sometimes I wonder, like, how do you reach a point where you know what is yours and what is not yours?
Well, what the Buddha always taught constantly in all the sutras is that the thing to know is that this is not mine, this is not me, this is not myself. To to anything that's constructed, he said to do this. And I think if we try our best, I say that because easier said than done when we're out there getting triggered. I know for myself, like, it's easier said than done. But if we can think about this, knowing this reality, that this is not mine, this is not me, this is not myself, the better we're going to live our life, the more healthier, most likely our life would be. And it reminds me of this sutra where this God wanted the teaching to end all suffering, but he wanted it in brief. He asked the Buddha, tell me the teaching to end all suffering, but keep it short. And the Buddha said, there is no experience worth personalizing. And that was the short, brief teaching.
Wow, that is very direct.
Yeah, it's like the second koan of the night, huh?
I wasn't expecting it to be so short.
The Buddha, I always called the Buddha the ultimate Zen master because he didn't care. He didn't care. He had no expectation, no like desire, no. He didn't care. He didn't take offense to being asked to keep it short. He's like, all right, here you go. Toma, as we say in but yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up. Today is like going to be an episode about interesting topic, which is paying respect and homage and salutation to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. And one topic we wanted to start with is the topic of bowing in Buddhism. And, in the West out here, sometimes when we find out that people, the lay people, the devotees, the followers of the Buddha, they when there's 4 assemblies, they call it, when it comes to the followers of the Buddha. One is the bhikkhus, who are the monks. One is the bhikkhunis, who are the female monastics. One is then there's the lay people, which are divided into the lay man and lay woman. And the monks, they rely on the lay people to offer them the 4 requisites, which is the food, the medicine, the clothing, and the shelter. And in turn, the lay people rely on the monks to provide them the Dhamma. And this is a very symbiotic relationship, and the Buddha made it so it would be symbiotic like this. So they cannot separate. He made these rules. And the lay person, when
but Juan, by symbiotic, you mean they both rely on each other for something, right?
yes, they not only rely on each other, they depend on each other.
Yeah, like the monks rely on the lay people for food and support, and then the lay people rely on the monks for guidance and teachings.
Yes. So we can learn to awaken. So the monks, what they're doing, the monks and nuns, the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, what they're doing is they're living a life of pure Dhamma. And what a life of pure Dhamma means is they're living like a Buddha. They're living like an Arahant. Living like a Buddha, like an Arahant, does not mean ascetic practices. A lot of people think that the lay life, the householder life, the home life is where you can indulge in pleasure, and that the monastic life, the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis, that they have to, avoid pleasure. It's they think of it as an aesthetic practice, but that's not what the Buddha taught. Those were the two extremes the Buddha said to avoid. So the monks are living not an ascetic life; they're living literally the same way a Buddha or an Arahant would behave and live. Not because it is an austerity, not because it is a code of honor you have to follow, but because that's how a Buddha or Arahant acts and lives his life or her life. And, in Zen, they used to say, like, why does the Buddha, sit down and meditate? And Alan Watts, I remember he used to say, well, that's just how a Buddha sits. We call it meditation, but that's just how a Buddha sits. He sits in complete introspection and apperception. Pali is Sati and Upekkha. So the bhikkhus and bhikkhunis are living the way a Buddha lives. And
what you said, in complete introspection?
Yeah.
Constantly?
Constant, yeah.
That means that the Buddha is always maintaining awareness of everything that's going on within him.
Yeah. Because the source of reality is inside. And if we go beyond that, there is no inside or outside. But the source is definitely not what we perceive as outside. The source is in perception itself, so looking inside. And so the Buddha is constantly, unremittently introspective and apperceptive. Apperceptive is Upekkha. Apperceptive means completely, fully conscious of the process of perception. So that means he never gets fooled. And this is going to come in handy when we talk about the salutation to the Buddha. But what I was getting at is that we sometimes in the West will feel a little funny when we see someone, a lay devotee, goes when they see a bhikkhu or bhikkhuni, when they see them go and prostrate, bow all the way to the ground with their head on the ground. And I know that at first it was very interesting when I was introduced to it. When I would go to the temple, I would see very devoted, confident devotees, followers of the Buddha, go and bow to the monks and nuns. And I remember for a while I did not bow, and I felt.
Juan, how long did it take you until you developed the courage to start bowing?
That's the perfect way to ask, because that's what was happening. It took me. I'm looking back now, any memory, any thought of a memory, is not correct. It's just you're remembering the last time you remembered. And
That's true.
so from where I am now, I, I would say maybe like almost, I would say maybe even, I would say like 6 months to a year, if anything.
Wow. And
If I had,
what inspired you to finally start bowing?
when I first, I think I first saw Bhante Sanata Vihari bow as a layperson. He was dressed in all white. He had just come back from his second tour in Afghanistan, I believe. And he was like, he was he was glowing. He was glowing like there was an aura around him, metaphoric aura. Um, he was practicing at a high level, I think. And I saw him bow. Here's this super popular, super fit, uh, soldier, martial artist, ladies man. And he was like bowing to the Bantes, Bante Kalita, Bante Sriniwasa, and any other Bantes that would be around. And it was like, yeah, that's very cool. And it took a while, and just being around people who had that type of faith and conviction in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, and they bowed. And I knew it was the right thing to do, because it's not something that someone who bows, I don't think, is doing it because they feel they have to. If you are doing it because you feel you have to, then I think you might be missing out. But to me, it was bowing out of respect for the Dhamma. And because these bhikkhus and bhikkhunis are practicing the Dhamma, they're not just thinking about it, they're practicing it. And they're living their life according to Dhamma. And I finally, just one day, I just did it because I'm like, who cares if you look funny, dude? I'm like, whatever.
So you were conscientious about how other people were judging you when you were bowing?
Not about other people. It's just whether I did it right. I didn't really care about the people looking at me. I was, I guess, more like, I didn't want to be, I guess, disrespectful. But I figured, it doesn't matter. It's the motivation that matters.
Oh, your intention.
Yeah, I like to say motivation, but I'm picky about words. But I bowed one day, and it felt good. It felt good because, one, I had gotten over that conscientiousness that you mentioned, and two, it felt good to do what is right from inside. And so it was very nice. I think, how was it for you in the beginning, and at what point did you start bowing?
That's funny. I was about to ask you if I could tell the story about how I learned to start bowing.
Yes, please.
But so I was raised in like a Christian religious environment. And I remember learning like the commandments, at Sunday school. And one of the commandments said, "Thou shalt not bow before any other idols," or something like that. I'm not sure if that was one of the 10 commandments. I can't remember them anymore. But I remember
I think it was.
It was. There's this like story in the Bible where this town like starts partying and they start worshiping like this golden idol, and then God turns them all into salt or something like that.
Oh, damn.
Or the city like catches fire and everyone dies. And then I was like, oh my God, I will never bow to anyone else. But but now that I have more awareness of the teachings, and like how, to me now, the way I see it now is that it was a form of control. But I think that it was deeper than that, because when I first bowed, I think I bowed to the Buddha statue once, and I remember I felt really embarrassed. But I was like, why do I feel embarrassed? And there were so many times when I was going to the temple that people would all bow, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like, in a way, I was being disrespectful because I was not bowing. So I was like, okay, I'll bow next time. And then the next time would come and I couldn't do it. And then I was like, okay, next time. And the next time would come and I still couldn't do it. And then finally, one day, I think after I started talking to you, and then I started learning more about the teachings through you, I realized that you were very devoted, and you took the teachings very seriously. And then you were like so happy. I didn't feel any anxiety from you when it came to bowing. And I could feel like for some reason it gave me a lot of anxiety. So finally, when I think I expressed to you one day, I was like, yeah, Juan, I feel like really, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's my religion or these thoughts I have in my mind, the back of my mind about bowing to other idols or to anyone else other than God, or than Jesus Christ, you know. I never even used to bow to Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I never even bowed at all to anyone. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know why it makes me so uncomfortable. And then you were like, one day after the meditation session, and then one day we went to one of the meditation sessions on Friday. I met Celinda there, I met you. And after the meditation, we did the Dhamma talk, and then everyone went. And I noticed that every time Celinda and you would always go and bow to the monks, like literally go right in front of them, and you would be like 2 feet away from them, each monk, and you guys would bow to each of them to pay respect, right?
Yes.
So finally one day after I had expressed to you how I felt, you're like, come on, follow me, I'll show you how. And I was like, okay. And then I just followed you, and then you just quickly just went down and you bowed, and then I was sat next to you and I bowed, and that was my first time bowing, and we were bowing to Bandicolita. And I remember my heart started beating really fast and my face turned red. Like all the blood went straight to my face, and I felt embarrassed. I was like embarrassed. I felt like I felt so many things. I wasn't sure exactly what was going on, but I was embarrassed that not only that I was bowing, but I was embarrassed that my face was red, and I was embarrassed of being embarrassed.
Yeah.
And and I was like, oh man, I know Bante is gonna see my face. And then I looked up at Bandicolita's face, and he was just smiling at me. Like, I didn't feel, when I looked at him, I didn't feel like he was judging me. I didn't feel like he was thinking, oh, you know what? I can tell you're embarrassed. You're disrespectful, or you know, your intentions are not genuine or whatever. I didn't feel any judgment at all. He was just looking at me, smiling at me like, oh, wow, she finally did it. And I was like, oh, it's not that bad.
It felt good, no?
Yeah, because I faced my fear and I just bowed and I did it. And it was humiliating because of the ideas I have in my unconscious about what it means to bow down to another, not just another human, but me personally. I was bowing down to a man. So there was this little voice, this part of me, right, in my head that's like, I shall never bow to a man, right? Like this pride. And I had to get over it. I had to like let it go. And when I was bowing and my face was turning red, that little side of Joana with all that pride, you know, was like humiliated and angry. But then this other side of me was like, no, I know I want to conquer this fear. I want to let it go. Whatever it is, I want to move forward. So I did it. And then the next time I did it, my face turned red again. And then the next time, not so much. Nowadays, like my face never turns red. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel happy when I bow. Because this is the thing. I think initially I was like, yeah, I'm bowing to a man, but I'm not really just bowing to any man. I'm bowing to one of the disciples of the Buddha, who is one of my teachers. He taught me how to meditate. Taught me how to practice breathing meditation, and breathing meditation has been changing my life the moment I've started practicing. And I've seen positive results in my own life. And not only myself, but people who've known me for a long time and worked with me have seen results. And they've seen the difference in my character. So I know that it is a positive, this practice is a very positive teaching. It's a very, it's good. Whatever it is, it's good. That's all I know. It's good and it feels right. And I know there's something special there. And I'm not just bowing to a man, I'm bowing to someone who is devoted to this practice. And I think Bhante Sudaso at Buddhist monastery said, you're bowing to the robes.
That's a good way to put the point across, not to get too complicated. How did you take that?
Well, I had never heard that before, but if the person wasn't wearing the robes, would you be bowing to them?
It's interesting. I would probably say in my way would be like you're bowing to the practice.
Yeah. Yes.
But similar idea. Yes. That's deep. I mean, it's deep because it's simple, but it's true. And it's funny, you say I helped you bow. Now you bow way better than I do. I saw your new bowing skills. You've gone Super Saiyan.
Oh, well, let me tell you what I learned at the Buddhist monastery in New York. So at the Buddhist Insights Monastery. So when I was there, I was listening to Bhante Sudaso speak, and he said that there, each region, each country in the Eastern Hemisphere has their own, kind of like their own style of bowing. And he said that, I remember hearing him say once that it's more about the feeling you put into the bowing, not just the bowing, but what thoughts are you having? What thoughts and what are your motivations when you are bowing, as you bow? And those thoughts and the intention or the motivation that you have in your mind and in your heart, it is felt and it is seen through the gestures you make. Even if it's very minute, like you can feel it. And when he said that, I was like, whoa, I never really thought about that. But it's true. You can tell, like, some people, if you watch them while they're bowing, like some people bow with so much grace and like so much like respect. And then some people, when they bow, they're like, they don't really think about it. They're just doing it, they're on autopilot. And then some others, when they're bowing, they're like very like, you can feel their devotion.
That's true. It kind of reminds me how in the sutras, when someone, the Buddha, arose in the world and people started, hearing whispers about the Buddha. There's a Buddha out there. He arose and they didn't know if he was legit. And especially the Brahmins, who were supposed to be the holy men of the time, because there was the Brahmins and the Samanas. The Samanas would go out into the jungle and they would practice on their own. They're known, like, Samana means pretty much like a shaman. And they were really the holy men before civilization started to settle down into civilization based on agriculture. Before that, when they were still hunter-gatherers, they were shamans. But then, civilization started to evolve and they started agriculture, and now they can have people settle down. Now instead of everybody learning to hunt or to gather, now you can divide work into different things. There's going to be farmers. There's going to be, metal workers. Whatever it is. And when civilization changed, then the holy man became an appointed person. And they say they thought that if they wanted to get God to help them out, they had to be. You can't just ask God to help you out. You have to be good. And then, but not everybody was good, so they had to have people who were good themselves and have them be the representative for them to God. And so those were the Brahmins, the priests. And so these Brahmins were in power. The Samanas were out there too, but they really weren't. Most of them, there are some, but they weren't really hungering for power. But these Brahmins, these priests, they're like, there's a Buddha out there, but we got to know if he's legit. And so they would send their students and have the students watch the Buddha 24/7 in everything he did, going for alms, getting his alms, sitting down, eating it, meditating it, washing his bowl, like whatever the Buddha did, he would watch him for 6 months before they can say, yeah, he's legit. And so that's what you said that Bhante Sudaso told you about watching someone bow. I think he's right, and it could probably translate to all your behavior.
Yeah, you're right.
And the way you bow, can you describe it?
Well, the way I bow now, I just try to be aware of, of what I'm doing. I'm not just like, okay, I'm just going to bow, but I'm like, I try to have positive thoughts, like maintain awareness of the thoughts I'm having while I'm bowing. I'm not having like these, I'm not allowing my mind to like have this negative chatter where it's like, oh, I'm bowing to a man. Oh my God, this is embarrassing, I don't think that way anymore. I think I've been able to move past that. Now I can have positive thoughts where I'm thinking about how much I respect and how much I admire the practice of the Buddha, how much I value the teachings of the Dhamma, which pretty much I've learned to respect because I've seen the results and the positive changes and how much it has helped me grow as a person in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that's why I feel I have more respect for it, because I know it's real and I know it's true.
Mm.
So when I bow, I have that feeling of respect for it. And then I try to bow slowly, and like slowly and 3 times, at least 3 bows.
That's something new, no?
Yeah, before I only bowed like once or twice, and I wasn't really full. I was more like more worried about how I looked, or if I was doing it right. I was more worried about that versus really focusing and thinking about what I was feeling and thinking in a positive manner towards the practice. So now it's not outside of me. I'm not thinking about what's outside of me. Now I'm thinking about what's in me while I'm bowing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't care about what other people think anymore.
Yeah, I could see that. I think we hung out with Bhante. We visited Bhante, and I think you showed up a little after us, and I saw you bow to Bhante, and yeah, it seemed you were there was no hesitation.
Well, while I was at the Buddhist Insights Monastery, there were these lay people who were Korean lay people, and they would bring dana almost every week, and you could just feel when they were around, they were so happy. They were just so happy to give to the monastery and the monks.
And then the venerable ones.
Yes, they were like so happy. And then when they would let them in, that would make them happy too. And as soon as they let them in, all of them would just go down and bow like right away. And when they would bow, they did it with so much humility, humility, and so
Yes.
much respect that I could just feel like, I could feel the devotion. And they would bow very slowly, but very mindfully. And they would bow 3 times. And I did not feel, not for 1 second did I feel any like anxiety or humiliation or anything like that, which is what I would feel at times when I would bow.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw how natural and how comfortable they were with it, I was like, yes, this is how I want to feel. This is how it should feel. And then, so when I would attempt bowing while I was there, I would remember how they did it. And I would try to practice the way I saw them practice.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. That's good. It's good to, I think that's why, especially, that's what helped me for seeing someone else do it. And especially in a way that you admire, and thought that was a good way to do it.
Yeah. And also, Juan, the feeling that it gave me, it was like, whoa, like they really like respect. They have so much respect, so much love,
Mm-hmm. Definitely. That's great. Yeah, I mean, you described it perfectly as far as why you bow. You not once did you say like, oh, there's something special about the statue, or it's like for introspective reasons. So and that's why we bow, out of the admiration and respect we have for the Dhamma, and those who teach us the Dhamma. You mentioned Bhante Kalita and how he taught you Sati and breathing meditation, and how much respect you have for that. That's one of my favorite things, is that Bhante Kalita taught you Sati. I always remember when you had to do your video about how how
he
you
was
learned
like,
Sati.
he's like, talk about how I taught you Sati. And then I stopped and I was like, in my head, I was like, Sati, Sati. And I was like, oh yeah, Sati. Because I had just spoken to you about Sati. I was like, Juan, you were like, yeah, I was practicing Sati. And then I was like, I hesitated to ask you because I was like, I was like, oh my God, how embarrassing. I've heard that word so many times and I still forget what it means. And I was like, and then this other little voice in my head was like, it's okay, Joanna, just ask. And I was like, Juan, what does Sati mean again? And then you paused and you kind of like giggled. And then you're like, and I could tell you were giggling because you were like, she still can't remember what Sati means.
That's so funny.
And then you told me what it meant. And I was like, oh, yes.
And then you were ready for Bhante Kalita, and you're like, yes, he did teach me Sati. That's right.
Yeah, but that was because you giggled, and then I felt embarrassed after you giggled. And then I was like, I'm going to remember this next time. I'm going to remember this. And then I would just like say it over and over. And then it came up again and I remembered it.
Hell yeah. That's I'm happy about that. So yeah, you're not the only one that had this appreciation. Do you've heard of the Bhante Maha Sāriputta, right? Sāriputta, he was Bhante Sāriputta, Arahant Assaji was the chief disciple of the Buddha. There were no rankings, but if there was a ranking, he was number one. And he was there was about 80 monks of the Buddha when he first started his ministry, like his dispensation of the Dhamma. He had about 80 monks who were special arahants. And there was like the foremost in this, the foremost in that, the foremost in psychic abilities, Mahamoggallana. Well, Maha Sāriputta was the foremost in Dhamma, wisdom of the Dhamma. Or his comprehension of the Dhamma. And he was, they called him the general of the Dhamma, or the marshal of the Dhamma, because he was the second to only the Buddha in explaining and teaching the Dhamma. And he learned the Dhamma by a monk he saw walking around. His name was Venerable Assaji, who was one of the first 5 Arahants that the Buddha taught to and helped transform. And Venerable Assaji, he was walking, and Sāriputta had already knew for a fact this guy is special. And he ran up to him and he bowed. And then he asked him, like, who is your teacher? And he said, the Buddha, Sambuddha. And he said, can you tell me his teachings? And then Venerable Assaji said, I'm new to the dispensation. It wouldn't be an adequate explanation of the Dhamma, of the teachings of the Buddha. And then Maha Sāriputta said, it's fine, just tell me what you know, and I'll use my own abilities to reason out the meaning. And so the Venerable Assaji told them, of those experiences that have causes and conditions, the Buddha has explained those causes and conditions and the end of those causes and conditions. And that's it. That's all he said. And with that, Maha Sāriputta became a Sotapanna. With just the first line, he became a Sotapanna. And that means once returner. And after that, he ran back to his friend Mahamoggallana, because they had made a pact that whoever encounters the deathless first, the state of deathlessness, they'll come find the other and then go practice it together. And so he went to get his friend Mahamoggallana, who was the foremost in psychic abilities. They ran and found they were going to go to the Buddha, but then they went to their original teacher, and that teacher was too stubborn to go practice. So he said he wanted the fame of being a teacher. So they left him and they went to the Buddha, and history says that they both became arahants. Well, ever since that, from that moment to the moment he went into parinibbana, Maha Sāriputta would bow first to the Buddha in whatever direction he's in, and then secondly bow to his teacher in whatever direction he's in. And it's because he was so appreciative that his teacher taught him the Dhamma. And that's what I thought of when you talked about Bhante Kalita. He was your teacher. So you could always bow to him even when you're not near him.
Yeah, you're right. I could.
All right. So when we talked about why Dhamma is so important, I mean, bowing, the meaning and why we bow. And
there was something that I heard you say before about bowing that I wanted to bring up.
I think I know what you're going at. Is it about the devoiding of self?
Yes, you once told me that when you bow, you are acknowledging that there is no self.
Yeah. I didn't come to that realization myself. I heard it from one of the Zen teachers, and I think it was a female Zen teacher, a modern teacher. And she mentioned how bowing and devotion, out of devotion, that devotion really means devoiding of self, devoid of self, meaning free of self. And that resonated to me, I'm like, yeah, that's true. And that's what I was thinking about, how your first time you got all embarrassed and red.
Yeah.
And then now you don't. And it's like, wow, it reminded me of that teacher that, yeah, it does devoid of self. It is devoid of self. That's what devotion is, to become, like you said, humility, because you're free of self.
Yeah, you're prioritizing something higher than you, something above you, and you're no longer thinking of yourself anymore.
Yeah, which is the cause of all suffering. But so we see how important and beneficial bowing is, and like you said, the thoughts you would have about like, well, I'm bowing to somebody and I'm bowing to a man. You're not the only one that would probably thinks of that in this society. I'm sure a lot of people think of that. So I'm glad we're speaking about bowing, and we're speaking about it from like a super normal standpoint, not a superficial standpoint. And it's very important. And, our topic for today, we wanted to, there is something called the Vandanas. The Vandana to the Buddha, Vandana to the Dhamma, Vandana to the Sangha. And Vandana is like you could say it's like a homage or salutation. Salutation to the Buddha, salutation to the Dhamma, salutation to the Sangha. And this came up because I think we mentioned, Joana, that the Dhamma disappears because people stop paying homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha.
When you told me that the first time, I was like, what?
Yeah, when I heard it, I'm like, what? That was the same reaction.
You were shocked too?
I was shocked. I'm like,
when did you first hear that?
Maybe a few years ago.
Who told you that?
I read it. I was reading the sutra. So I have the Samyutta Nikaya, and I'm pretty sure it's there because it was like, I read it. I think I read it in a sutta, and then I also heard Bhante Punaji say it once too. And he was referencing a sutta, and so I think I may have looked because of that.
Can you say it to us, how you remember it?
And like I said, I can tell you how I remembered it last time I remembered it, but
okay.
I need to find it. I was having coffee with Bhante Sanata Vihari today, and I was asking him his thoughts about this. And we both remembered that sutta. We just can't remember exactly where it is. I need to do some digging in my books because I know I put notes everywhere. But
it's okay. Just say it the way you remember it.
But it's basically saying that it goes like most of the suttas. Like, what is the reason that for the ending of the Dhamma, for the disappearance of the Dhamma? It is because monks that people give up paying homage to the Buddha, give up paying homage to the Dhamma, give up paying homage to the Sangha. This is the reason for the ending and disappearance of the Dhamma. And, I gave you that 5,000 year time range of that. That's how long the awakened Dhamma is around until it disappears.
Oh, yes. You once said during our last podcast with Diana, you said that it has been predicted did you read this in a sutta, or where did you read this?
It's not in the suttas, although they mention time ranges in the suttas, but this is more of just a traditional understanding, so take this with a grain of salt.
Okay, so it has been known in history and traditional understanding that the Dhamma, it comes and it goes, kind of like the ocean waves and the breath. It comes and it goes, it comes and it goes, just like the earth also. And they say that you had said before that every 5,000 years, the Dhamma comes and then it disappears.
No, sorry. It's not that every 5,000 years it comes, because it's very rare for the Dhamma to come. Very rare. It can go many eons before it comes. But when it is here, I can't say every time, but they say that this time is going to last about 5,000 years.
Has it ever lasted this long before?
I don't know. There's no textbook source or that source from the Buddha that says it. However, they say that the Buddha was one of the, so apparently Buddhas of the past and the future they're special. They have a special ability, a special characteristic, and that the characteristic of this Buddha was to be extremely wise. Like, wisdom was the main characteristic of this Buddha, Gautama, of this Sama Sambuddha, Gautama. And, for example, the next Buddha, they say who the next Buddha is, the Bodhisattva who's going to be the Buddha Mateya. And that's in Pali. In Sanskrit is Maitreya. And they say that his characteristic is going to be compassion, extreme, immense compassion. But for the reason that this Buddha, his main characteristic is wisdom or comprehension, is that allows him to not only give so many sutras, because there's thousands of sutras out there. Basically, there's thousands of dialogues out there. That's what a sutra is, a dialogue that was heard and retold. And that's why there was so many, and that's why his Dhamma is well established, extremely well established, and will last for a long time.
So that's why it lasted 5,000 years, because it was so well established in wisdom.
Yes, and wisdom and comprehension. And of course, it's been lost too. The only reason me and you can talk about this Dhamma is because two reasons. One, the practice of how to live like a Buddha has been, although maybe people haven't been practicing perfectly and still where it creates arahants, but the practice, the rules have been kept, and also the Dhamma, the suttas have continued. The Dhamma has continued in the form of the suttas. And although translations have been varied and they're all different, at least we have the root sutras, and then we can reconstruct the Dhamma based on those sutras, which is what our Bhante Punnaji did.
Wow.
If we go by the traditional translations, it's going to be good for us, because the Buddha's Dhamma is good for anyone, good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end. But if we really want to get the full benefit of the Buddha's Dhamma, it'd be good to understand it properly, comprehend it properly. And someone who is, when the conditions are right, can go and look at the Pali and make out the Dhamma properly and practice it and see if it works. And so we're lucky that we have the suttas, and the monks have preserved the suttas and also preserved the Vinaya. The Vinaya is the disciplinary code. Both are very important, because the Vinaya, this disciplinary code, is basically, hey, this is how an Arahant would behave. This is an Arahant wouldn't do these things. And it's not a disciplinary code of you better do this or you're going to hell. It's like, do I want to bring out the best in me? And to bring out the best in me, I will live like an Arahant, like a Buddha.
Yeah, to cultivate the highest qualities.
Yes, sadhu. That is correct. And so this Dhamma is always present, because it's always present, but it's not. People are unaware of it, or they don't know about it. And that's why there's a simile that the Buddha was like a explorer in the jungle, and he was cutting through the brush and all the growth of plants and trees, and he found this ancient city. And then he came back out and told everyone, like, there's this city, come and restore it. Everybody come, look, I created this path, follow this path. And that's an example of the Dhamma. So it disappears from our knowledge, from the people's knowledge, but it's never gone. And the Buddha didn't create it. He only rediscovered it.
Mm.
And yes, hopefully it does last another 5,000 years. I also found this sutra that said that the Dhamma, the idea of nirvana doesn't disappear. People still want freedom from suffering. But what really disappears is the Eightfold Path, the knowledge of the supernormal Eightfold Way. And so people don't know how to escape suffering, how to liberate themselves from suffering. And so that's why, the Hindu teachings, like the Vedas, the Upanishads, they they all talk about, it's similar to Buddhism in certain aspects. Of course, Buddhism is different in what the goal is, but it's similar. And the similarities is because people want to look for liberation, moksha. And so that desire, that goal is there, but the practice to how to do it that's what gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about bowing. We're bowing, because we've been like an hour talking about the Dhamma and why we bow, because we respect it and those who practice it and uphold it.
And the salutations. And
yes, and so the salutations. So when I read that and I shared that with you, that the Dhamma disappears when the people stop paying homage and respect to the Dhamma, the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, from a superficial standpoint, that means the three salutations. A superficial person will think and be like, well, look at this. The Buddha wants us to praise him. That's what a normal person, would think. The Buddha wants us to praise him. How egotistical. And then they think about, oh, he wants us to praise him. They're going to think about the chants that we do, the salutations to the Buddha, the chants we do at ceremonies.
Mm-hmm.
But let's think about it. Why do we chant these things? Well, if someone has read the sutras,
because they have they mean something. They're important.
That's right. They're important and they have meaning. When we look at the sutras, these have pragmatic utility. The pragmatic utility of this is that it's telling you the qualities of a Buddha and the qualities of the Dhamma and the qualities of the Sangha, the practitioners of the Dhamma that follow the Buddha. So it may seem superficial, but if we look deeper into it, it becomes super normal. And so we wanted to go over it, the salutation to the Buddha and the salutation to the Dhamma. And Joana, I don't know if you know this, but you know how we take the refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha 3 times?
Yes.
They call that the Tisarana. You know that according to the sutras, in order for someone to be quote unquote a follower of the Buddha, I was going to say a Buddhist, but it's much better just to say a follower of the Buddha. In order for someone to be a quote unquote follower of the Buddha, all they have to do is take their 3 refuges. That's the only paperwork there is far as there being paperwork.
By take the refugees, you don't mean that just them saying it, but practicing it in their way of life, right?
Of course not. Well, taking refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha, of course, it can't just be parroted, no. But if there is some sort of ritual, literally saying it, yeah, that's what they do. They literally say it. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha for life. And that's not something that the Buddha says, all right, go ahead and say it. The Buddha's not there like some cult leader. The people come, they ask him a life or death question. He answers it clearly and thoroughly. They become transformed, and they, in an extreme joy and appreciation, they say, please, Buddha, think of me as a lay follower for the rest of my life. I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha. And that's the chanting we do, but that's why we do it, because, that's the mere, if there is a bare minimum of what you have to do to be a Buddhist or a follower of the Buddha, is taking the 3 refuges. That's the bare minimum. Of course, we want you to practice and do everything else, but you at least have to do this. And it's not a rule that if not, you're not a real Buddhist. But if we're going to take the teachings of the Buddha and see what happens in the suttas, this is a pretty common understanding that taking the 3 refuges is like how someone announces that they are a lay follower.
Oh, I see. Do they do it 3 times because that was the habit back in that time? They would say everything 3 times in order for people to remember it, right?
Yeah, it's I think you're right. It was in order to remember it, and also like they didn't have this is just me speculating, answer yes, that I'm just speculating, right?
Yes, you're speculating.
Yes. So, they didn't have like notaries back then. They couldn't keep documents because paper back then of the temperature and the ecosystem and environment there wouldn't allow paper to last. It was so humid. So they really couldn't document things. So I think they would announce it 3 times in order to like make it official. So there's no confusion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think. I think that's in order to remember, like you said, and also to make it official, since they didn't have recording tools. There was nothing. But if you say it 3 times, there's no confusion as to what what it is that you're saying.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that are interesting about 3. Like in the suttas, we always joke that if you ask the Buddha 3 times, he has to do it, because there was situations where people asked the Buddha once and the Buddha said, no, this is going to hurt you if I answer. So just let it go. Yeah, they ask him twice. No, don't do it. Like I'm telling you. They ask him 3 times. Like I told you not, but here, all right, you want to know? Here you go. Like there was this guy who would practice like a dog. He would live his life like a dog, eat on the floor, sleep on the floor, walk on all fours, not shower, not living like literally like a dog. They call them in the suttas. It's called the Dog Duty Sutra, and him and there was another guy who lived like I forgot what the other one. I want to say a pig, but I'm not sure. It lived like another animal. But the dog duty, that's how the name of the sutta is. So I always remember the dog ascetic. And they asked him, like, what is our destination? What's our next life? Where are we going? And the Buddha told him, don't ask me. It's only going to hurt you. And then they asked him 3 times and he said, all right, I'll tell you. And what do you think he told them?
He told the guy, Bhante Sudaso told me this.
Oh, you know this. All right, tell us.
Yeah, he said, but it was interesting because I had never heard this before. So this is actually a sutta, right?
Yes.
Would you happen to know which book?
Yeah, the Majjhima Nikaya, the middle length discourses.
Okay, so there's a sutta where these men are practicing this lifestyle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that it's going to help them cultivate positive insight, and then they finally, have develop the if one of them finally thinks about asking the Buddha if what's going to happen if I continue this lifestyle, and the Buddha tells them that the manner in which you are living at this moment is a reflection of how you will live in the next life. And if you are living like a dog, then you're probably going to be a dog in your next life.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly what happened. And he basically he said it like this. He says, at the very best, you'll be living like a dog. You'll be a dog. At the very worst, you're going to hell. That's how he said it.
But wait, why would he go to hell though?
Because living as a dog, you probably don't do any meritorious work.
Oh.
And who knows what kind of actions you take, because your actions aren't living like a dog. Your actions aren't motivated by reasoning, by your thinking.
You're not helping anyone. You're not teaching anyone anything. You're not setting a good example for others either.
Yeah. There's no real good that can come. So at the very best, you'll just become a dog again. But at the very worst, then you're going to hell because maybe you did some bad things. But it's very interesting. So yeah, there's something special about 3. I just wanted to mention that because
what else Bhante said. Sudaso told me and Daniel, he was telling us this sutta, sharing the sutta with us during our little tea time with him. We had tea with him, and he said that haven't you noticed? Haven't you ever had pets who have like human tendencies, or humans that have animal tendencies?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh my God, yes, I have. And he said, well, it's usually the Buddha has mentioned that when humans or animals have certain tendencies that are either like humans or like animals, there is a possibility that that animal was a human in their past life, or that that human was an animal in their past life. And I thought
Yeah.
that was very interesting because I realized it is possible.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
But what other special things do you know about the number 3?
That's part of why I wanted to get into this salutations. That's interesting that you asked. By the way, the sutra is the Majjhima Nikaya 57. If anyone wants to read it, it's the Kukuravatika Sutta, but dog duty ascetic sutra.
Can we put a link of it?
Yeah, I'll
below?
put a link. I'll put a link. That's a good idea. So yeah, another thing that goes with 3. So it's interesting where another thing that goes with 3, they talk about the threefold practice. The Buddha taught us the threefold practice. What is that threefold practice? Sila, Samadhi, Panya. So what is Sila, Joana?
Juan, I'm sorry. I can't remember what Sila means.
It's okay. You know what it means? It means correcting your behavior. Sila is correcting your behavior. That's why we take the 5 precepts, right?
Yes.
And then the Samadhi, and basically it's purifying your motor activity. That's what Sila is.
Have we explained what the 5 precepts are?
No, if you want to, actually, this would be a good time because that's how we go. We usually in our temple, when we meditate, after meditation, we do chanting, we do homage to the Buddha, and then we take
the homage was the 3 things you mentioned earlier, right?
The homage is the Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. We say that 3 times.
And that means homage to the Buddha, the spiritually perfect one, the harmoniously awake one. That's what that means. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Yes. And then we do the Tisarana, the 3 refuges, which
is I take refuge in the Buddha, I take refuge in the Dhamma, I take refuge in the Sangha. You know what? When I was first introduced to these chantings, this was my favorite.
Can you do the first 3?
Yeah. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And then we do Dutiyampi, do it 3 times, then Tatiyampi.
Yeah, Dutiyampi means secondly, and then Tatiyampi means thirdly, right?
Yes, because, we're making it official. And then after we do that, we do Pancha Sila. Pancha means?
Pancha is
5.
Oh, okay.
Pancha is 5, kind of like Panchakanda, the 5 constituents of the process of perception.
How about Papancha?
Papancha, that means categorizing, putting
So it doesn't actually mean have the number 5 in it?
I don't think so. No.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, this one is Panchasila, and it's 5 precepts. What are precepts, Joana?
They're kind of like commandments, no? Or kind of like promises.
They're very similar. There was a time when Jesus, because everyone knows the commandments, like the commandments of Moses, I think. I think it was Moses, not Abraham. I can't
remember them anymore, Juan.
But it's the 10 commandments that you're speaking of, right?
Yes, but I can't remember them.
Yeah, and they were some of them were good, but some of them were like, I shall not worship false idols. I shall
thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not, thou shalt honor thy father and thy mother. What else? Thou shalt not commit adultery.
Yes.
Let's see. Let's look it up. Good
Yes.
idea.
So, all right, we're looking up the 10 Commandments. And all right. Where's a good list when you need it, huh, Joana?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's you shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is heaven above or that is earth beneath. And then you shall not take the name of the Lord God in vain. And then you'll remember the Sabbath. I laugh at some of these, I'm sorry. And then honor your father and your mother. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. And you shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet the wife. You shall not covet the servant. You shall not covet anything.
Most of these are pretty much the same. They're very similar, except the one that says, I am the Lord your God, and the one that says, you shall not make for yourself a carved image.
Yeah, so there is, Bhante Punaji taught us that Jesus was really a Buddhist, and that the Jesus that Christians believe in is really based on a Abrahamic interpretation.
Oh my God, Juan. Speaking of Jesus,
yeah,
I learned something very interesting recently.
Tell me.
So my friend Celinda, she was telling me how she actually studied Judaism for a whole year.
Oh, yeah.
She took Judaism classes at a Jewish church. Mm-hmm. And she learned that the Jesus name is Jesus actually has a real name. It's not Jesus Christ.
Oh, yeah. Joseph ben Yahweh?
The way she pronounced it sounded like a real Jewish name.
No, yeah. It was can you remember it?
I think he said Joseph. Let me see. Let's look it up real quick. yeah. Joshua something.
Ben Joseph. Jehoshua? What?
Yeah, Jehoshua. And then where's his last name?
I think that's the last name.
Oh, what? I believe his first name was Joseph. Jehoshua.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, but anyways, this is the thing. When she told me that Jesus Christ actually had a real name, I was like, what? All my life, I have been taught that Jesus Christ's name was Jesus Christ, and you're telling me that it was not his real name?
Well, Christ is a title they gave him after he died.
Yeah, but I really believed that was his name. Like that was what they taught us, in church. And then she said that Mary Magdalene was not actually a prostitute. The reason why they called her a prostitute was because she never married, and she did not live like the traditional life of a mother and wife.
Yes.
She would literally follow Jesus everywhere, and she was always the first one to literally in the books of the Bible when they're describing his life, every time something happened, she was always the first one to be there. She was actually one of the most devoted followers of Jesus, but they categorized her as a prostitute because she had no husband and she did not follow the traditional way of life of a woman back then. And if you didn't follow that traditional way of life, that's what they called you.
A prostitute?
Yeah, pretty much. Oh,
Wow.
and they would stone you too if you were like a woman roaming around alone without a man to accompany you. You were considered a prostitute. But wait, there was something important that I wanted to tell you.
Hmm.
Okay, so she also said that in those Jewish classes, they also talked about his life between his teen life. Okay, so in the Bible, in the English version, they only talk about Jesus's life from his childhood to the age of 13, and then from the age of
Like
32 and or 28 and onward, right?
something
But
like that.
there's like
29 or
this,
32 or 33, something like that.
yeah, and there's like this huge gap that's just missing.
Yeah.
Okay. And in that Jewish class, they were talking about how they actually have historical teachings that are saying that Jesus Christ traveled to India during that time.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
I was
and
like,
that he
wow,
there's so many cool YouTube videos about that too.
that is so interesting because that's how he learned. He was probably practicing with the yogis
Yeah,
during
that's
that time. And that's how he became a Buddhist.
yeah, because if in India back then, like if you saw someone walk on water, they'll be like, oh, saw that last
Yeah.
week.
Yes, exactly. The yogis knew how to walk on water. And then
Yeah,
Celinda was pointing that out too. She's like, how is it that Jesus learned how to walk on water? The Indian yogis can do that too. And he spent years in India. So
yeah,
he learned it, he practiced and he learned in India.
yeah. That's why Bhante Punaji, he would make claims that Jesus was not a Christian; he was a Buddhist, and that the Jesus Christ. I like how Robert Anton Wilson says Jesus Christ because he always pronounced it like a Southerner. Um, but he said that Bhante said that Jesus Christ, that's a Christian. That's how Christians interpret Jesus, and they don't know that they're interpreting him based on a Abrahamic interpretation of God. And remember how we just read the Ten Commandments, right?
Yes.
Bhante Punaji said that Jesus didn't have those commandments. He didn't have those 10 commandments. He had other commandments, and they were the Buddhist commandments. You know, can you read, Joanna, from 17 to 22? This is from the Gospel.
Yeah, it says, the rich man. As he was setting out on a journey, a man ran up and knelt before him and asked him, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And then Jesus said to him, why do you call me good? No one is good but God alone. You know the commandments. You shall not murder. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. You shall not defraud. Honor your father and mother. He said to him, teacher, I have kept all these since my youth. Jesus, looking at him, loved him and said, you lack one thing. Go, sell what you own and give the money to the poor, and you will have the treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me. When he heard this, he was shocked and went away grieving, for he had many possessions.
Yeah, so he was sad because he knew that he couldn't do that. He was still personalizing all his possessions. But the first part, he said, "What are the commandments?" And he said them. And are those commandments basically the Buddhist commandments?
Yeah, pretty much.
So Bhante Punaji would show that Jesus was not talking about the God of the Hebrews. He wasn't talking about the Abrahamic interpretation of God. He was talking about the God of the Buddhists, which even Buddhists will cringe when they hear this. But there's sutras where the Buddha literally says Brahma Bhutto. Bhutto means become, and Brahma means God with a capital G. And he said that his disciples are the sons of God. And that's what Jesus was walking around saying. He's the son of God. And so he was here, he's teaching the teachings of his God, not the Abrahamic interpretation of God, but here he's talking about what the Buddha taught.
Yeah,
So
it's really interesting.
we were talking about the precepts, and you said they're kind of like commandments. And the one thing I would add to that is that no one is telling you to do this. This is something, a practice you undertake because you want to. It's a principle you're taking in order to help you, to be an expedient to help you to Nibbana, to reach Nibbana.
Yes, because these are the principles and the morals that the monks follow.
Yes, and we heard the 7 things that Jesus said for his commandments. Now can we read the 5 precepts, Joana?
Yeah, so these are the 5 Buddhist precepts. Number 1, I take up the training principle of not seeking pleasure through disrespect for living beings. Number 2, I take up the training principle of not seeking pleasure through stealing or robbing. Number 3, I take up the training principle of not seeking pleasure through sexual misconduct. Number 4, I take up the training principle of not seeking pleasure through false, hurtful, or harmful speech. Number 5, I take up the training principle of not seeking pleasure through the use of drugs that cause intoxication and hallucination.
Yes. So that's the second, when we go to our meditation and then after we do the chanting, and chanting here is not just like prayers or singing. This is just reflections. We're actually reflecting on what it means. But we do the homage to the Buddha, and we do the taking the 3 refuges 3 times each. And then we do the Panchasila, the 5 precepts that we undertake, the principles we undertake, the training principle. And then we do the salutation to the Buddha. And here this is in the sutras. I don't know if you know, Joanna, but in the sutras, when they would say, remember I told you that they would be like, yeah, I heard there was a Buddha. Did you hear about that? They're whispering about the Buddha arising in the world. Someone would come around who has met the Buddha and said, yeah, actually, I heard this about the Buddha. And then they go and say this. This is the report that they would hear about the Buddha. And it starts out with Itipi so Bhagava. So Itipi so Bhagava. Itipi so, I want to thank Bhante Sanata Vihari today because he helped me figure out what Itipi so means. But it literally just means like, this is what we've heard of him. Like we've heard he is, and he here is, they're talking about the Bhagava, the Blessed One, or here is the translation we use. What is that, Joanna?
The spiritually perfect one.
Yes. So we said it goes Itipi so Bhagava, and that means the Buddha is spiritually perfect.
Wait, can you chant it so that people can hear what it sounds like?
Yeah. Do you want to do the full all the way to the end?
Sure.
Yeah.
Can you go up a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, so this is how the salutation to the Buddha is chanted. This is what it sounds like when it's chanted. Iti piso bhagava araham samma sambuddho Vijjacarana sampanno Sugato Loka Vidu Anuttaro-Purisa-Damma Sarathi Sata Devama Nusanam Buddho Bhagavati. It sounds so much better when the monks say it.
No, that was beautiful. What are you talking about? Yes, it's beautiful. And anyone, it's fun. It's fun to chant. Don't you think, Joanna?
Yeah. It when I chant, I feel very peaceful.
The most important thing about chanting is knowing the words. That's number 1. But let's get past that. We can say chanting is fun. It feels good.
Yeah, it does feel good.
And
why, Juan? Why does it feel good?
Well, I think it's
Tell me your speculations.
Thank you. I think it's I was talking about this with Bhante Sanata Vihari as well. I think it's you're using your mind deliberately. Deliberate means consciously, and you're using your mind consciously to reflect on something. And one, that's engaging attention centers in your brain, in your nervous system. And when you're engaging attention, you're actually calming down the body, and you get feel-good chemicals. And
peptides?
We can call them peptides. That those are the friends of the show. And so Ram Dass used to say that if you're ever feeling like angry or you're anxious, oh, what are they going to say about this or blah blah blah, he says just start doing one of your chants. And I have done that and it works. If you're stressing out about something, they call that, what they call that, Joana?
What do they call it?
Buddha Nusati, Dhamma Nusati, and Sangha Nusati. Nusati means reflecting your attention on. And Buddha Nusati is reflecting your attention on the Buddha, reflecting your attention on the Dhamma, reflecting your attention on the Sangha. And so it's good to chant. It's good to chant. I like to do this chant. Oh, remember I told you, I don't know if I said it. I think I said it last time that I had this dream where the devil appeared and I started doing the metta and it didn't work. And so then I started doing the Iti Piso Bhagava Arahant Sama.
Wow, you were saying that in your dream?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I said it and then I said it in English. The Buddha is spiritually perfect, harmoniously awake, and so on, which we're going to go after.
Wow.
And it worked. It worked. It helped.
The devil went away after?
Yeah. And I only thought of it because I've seen it in the early writings, that story of a little boy. I need to find it and I'll read it. But a little boy who was in the cemetery, he felt something tug at his leg and he got so scared. And I think the Buddha appeared to him and told him just to do Dhamma Nusati. I think it's a story from one of the.
Oh yes, you told this story to Dan and me during the last podcast. That
yes.
There was a boy. What was he doing in the cemetery?
I think he got lost. I think his father. He was with his father, and they had like a herd of cattle, or oxes, or something, and or sheep possibly, and they ran off. And so the father has told the boy, "Stay here. I'm going to go after him and bring him back." And the dad never came back, and the boy stayed there overnight.
What do you think was tugging at his leg?
Who knows? I like how Ram Dass talks about his supernormal experiences. He says, was I talking to aliens? Maybe. Or was it just my left hemisphere of the brain talking to the right hemisphere? Maybe. So like it could have been something real, quote unquote, objective. Or it could have been just a subjective experience.
Wait, Ram Dass thinks he was talking to aliens within his mind?
I said it wrong.
You got to tell us the story now.
No. Well, I meant Robert Anton Wilson. I thought I said that.
I thought you said Ram Dass. I think you said Ram Dass.
It could have been. We'll figure this out when we hear this. But yeah, it was Robert Anton Wilson, and yeah, I mean, he started doing these practices that this guy named Aleister Crowley, Aleister Crowley.
Well, I only know what Robert Anton Wilson has said about him, and he said that he was a very smart man, but he was mischievous.
Yeah, that's how people saw him. He actually practiced in Sri Lanka and learned a lot of meditations. And apparently he called it magic with a K, CK at the end, or maybe just a K. But apparently there was practices to communicate with extraterrestrials or aliens. And if we think about it, in the sutras, the monks would go into the jhanas and conversate with the devas, the aliens. So
yeah, the monks would do it too. The Buddha would do it too. But yeah. Also, devas and nagas, which were pretty much aliens, the way that they're mentioned in the suttas, it was mentioned that they would come visit the Buddha, not during daylight time, but at certain time of the night. It was like a very specific time of the night when they would come to ask him questions about the practice, right?
Yeah. He would devote his time to lay people, to the monks.
In the late daylight time. And then at nighttime, he would devote his time to the devas and the nagas, right?
Yeah. So I think the daytime was, eating, breakfast, then meditation, then teaching the lay people. Then in the afternoon or evening, it was the monks. And then late night or early morning, it was the devas. So like the Buddha was working 24/7 pretty much. I think he only slept 2 hours, and it wasn't really sleeping. It was like recharging.
Well, the Buddha never really slept, did he?
It's like just like putting your computer to sleep. I guess, I don't know.
Oh,
But
yeah.
but it's like he did it attentively, awarely. He was aware.
That's amazing.
Yes. And so Robert Anton Wilson said that he started doing some of these practices that Aleister Crowley was talking about.
Wait,
and that
tell us about the practices.
I have never read any Aleister Crowley books, so I can't.
I'm kind of scared to read about Aleister Crowley.
You might have extraterrestrials communicating with you, because he said he was getting communications from extraterrestrial from the Sirius constellation, the Dog Star constellation.
What do you know about the Sirius Dog Star constellation?
Not much, besides it's a constellation of stars. And it's not, I mean, it's not super far. It's definitely far, but it's within our range of measurement. And he was saying that he was getting communications. I don't know what he did to get those communications. I don't know what the communications were, but it happened during the beginning of summer, which they call the dog days of summer. And it was so many weird synchronicities and coincidences that he started to go like a little crazy, like what we call chapel perilous, where you don't know what's what.
Do you remember any of these synchronicities that he mentioned?
Besides that, it's the dog's communications from the Sirius constellation, which is a dog, and it started happening on the beginning of summer, which I believe is like July 23 or something. And that they call it summer, the dog days of summer. There was more. I encourage anyone who's interested to just listen to multiple Robert Anton Wilson talks. I'm sure he brings it up a lot.
Can you link this talk to the bottom too?
Yeah, I'll have to find which talk it is. I've listened to so many, they've all blurred together. So he couldn't figure out if he was really getting messages from them. And then he had like a psychic tell him that it was really a medieval Irish poet communicating to him. And then he was getting all these explanations. And then he got into neuroscience, and he figured that it's just the left hemisphere talking to the right hemisphere. So he says that he's not sure whether it was objective or subjective. And that now he just leans to saying it was both.
Well, yes, keep going.
Yeah, so I forgot how we got to this, but
we were talking about wait, can you scroll down a little bit? Up, I'm sorry, scroll up a little bit. There, stop. We were talking about how
I don't remember either. Don't worry.
Did we actually? I sang. I did the chanting, and then did we explain it in English?
No. So the Itipiso Bhagava means the Buddha, the spiritually perfect one. Arahant means Arahant is a breaker of bonds. Arahant is the highest level of awakening. There's 4 levels of awakening. One is a stream enterer. You'll become a Buddha within the next 6 lives. One is a Sakadagami, which is a once returner, meaning that you'll return one more time to the human realm and then you'll wake up. One is the Anagami, which is the non-returner. That means that you're going to go, there's 3 realms of existence we can call. And one is the sensual realm, the other is the image realm, and the third is the imageless realm. And the anagamis, the non-returners, do not return to the human realm, and they go to the imageless realms until their energy dissipates completely and they attain parinibbana at that point, nibbana and parinibbana at that point. And then there's the arahant, the one who has attained nibbana. And when they give up the body, they attain parinibbana. So here, that's what arahant means. Ara means like a bond or a shackle or a fetter. Han is like to break it, to break that. So they call him the breaker of bonds, the breaker of shackles.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes. So arahant is someone who has broken all 10 shackles.
Ara is a shackle.
Yes. And
ham is the breaker of the shackles. Can I read the paragraph below that?
Yes, I don't know. So here the spiritually perfect is for arahant. The Buddha was really for Bhagava, which really we can call it the sublime one or the blessed one. Bhagava means like a holy, the holy being, blessed one or a sublime one. And that's what the Buddha.
Wait, can you read that paragraph so that they can hear the English translation, and then you can explain the correlations between the English words and the Pali words?
Yeah, that's what we're going to do, but one by one. So the paragraph is, the Buddha is spiritually perfect, harmoniously awake, a fully conscious behavior, attained to supreme goodness, has penetrated the world, the unequal trainer of character, the educator of both human and celestial beings, awake and sublime. So Arahant is here spiritually perfect because he has broken all fetters. Then Sama Sambuddho is harmoniously awake. Sama means harmonious. Sam means fully, like completely. And Buddho is awakened one. And so there's three kinds of Buddhas. Do you remember the three?
Pacceka Buddha.
Yes, that is a solitary Buddha who becomes awakened but does not teach.
And
Arahant is the second.
And once returner?
No, once returner is someone who's on his way to become an Arahant.
Okay. Arahant, Pacceka Buddha, and
we said it.
Samasambuddho.
That's right. So a Pacceka Buddha is a solitary Buddha, meaning they do not have the ability to teach others the Dhamma. Then Arahant Buddha is someone who followed a Samasambuddha to become awakened. And a Samasambuddha is someone who is by himself, by his own effort, rediscovered the Dhamma and become awakened. And then not only became awakened by his own effort, because also the Pacceka Buddha awakens by his own effort. There's no Buddha around when there's a Pacceka Buddha. But so he becomes awakened by his own effort, but he does not have the ability to teach others. But a Samasambuddha is someone who awakened harmoniously, fully by their own effort, and they have the ability to teach others the deathless Dhamma. And then it goes Vijjacarana Sampanno. So Vijja, we've talked about that a lot, Vijja versus Avijja. Avijja means unconscious. And what does Vijja mean, Joana?
Conscious.
Fully conscious, that's right. So here, Vijjacarana Sampanno. Charana means your behavior. And Sampanno means has attained it. So a fully conscious behavior. That's the Vijjacarana.
Could you imagine being fully conscious of your behavior and how your behavior affects everyone around you?
I cannot. It sounds glorious, though. It sounds so beautiful and beneficial, and something out of like I was going to say something out of like a fairy tale, but that's just to show how otherworldly it is.
Yeah, it's amazing because it's actually possible.
Yeah, that's why I almost didn't want to say fairy tale, because it is possible. So the Buddha is spiritually perfect, harmonious, awake, and a fully conscious behavior. And that's our goal. The bhikkhus and bhikkhunis live with that disciplinary code with so many precepts because the Buddha, that's how Buddha behaves, a fully conscious behavior.
That's how the Buddha trained himself to develop that awareness through a daily practice. He meditated. He practiced meditation and developed his meditation so well to the point where he became fully conscious of his behavior. Not only that, he became fully aware of everything. Things we didn't even know you could become aware of.
Yes. Yes. That's why there's that simile of a handful of leaves. He says, what's more?
Oh, yes.
What's more, monks, the handful of leaves in my hand or the leaves in the forest? And he said, compared to the leaves in the forest, the handful of leaves in your hand is very small. He goes, yes, the leaves of the forest is everything the Tathagata knows, because the Buddha never called himself the Buddha. He would refer to that organism or that activity that we call the Buddha. He would refer to it as the Tathagata, the one who has realized reality. He says the Tathagata, the leaves in the forest is what the Tathagata has known, has come to know. But these handful of leaves is what I teach you, because this is what's all you need to attain awakening. You don't need to know everything in the forest. All you need to know is suffering, the cause of suffering, the end of suffering, and the way leading to the end of suffering. So what's the next Pali word, Joana?
Sugato.
Sugato. Attain to supreme goodness. So supreme goodness, that's one way of seeing the Buddha. You can see the Buddha as attaining supreme wisdom or comprehension. You could that's the thinking aspect, and you can also see him as attaining supreme happiness, which that's the mood. And then you can say he's attained supreme goodness, which is the behavior, the sila. So it's interesting that comes after the fully conscious behavior. When you attain fully conscious behavior, then you attain supreme goodness. Would you agree?
Yes.
So that's the Sugato, supreme goodness. Why? Because goodness equals happiness, and happiness equals wisdom or comprehension. They're all the same. Then we have, what is that, Joana?
Loka Vidu.
Loka does not mean crazy for our Spanish listeners. This is Loka with a K, and Loka means the world. You can call it the world, you can call it the universe, whatever you'd like, but it's usually for the world. And Vidu means to see. Like Vidu comes from like Vedana. Vedana is feeling. It's like a sensation. And Vidu means to see. And most people who want to learn about the world, what do, Joanna? They start Googling and learning facts and facts and facts and facts.
You mean the average modern human?
Yes, the ordinary being, the ordinary individual.
Yeah, nowadays we Google everything.
We Google and we think that to know the world, we have to know facts about it, right?
That's what our educational system teaches us, even as children.
Yeah, that's true. Very true. And so
even in college, they teach you that.
Yeah, got to learn facts about facts about facts about facts. But here the Buddha, when they say Loka Vidu, they're not talking about learning facts. The Buddha is talking about penetrating what the world is. The word, when one time the Buddha said, "This is the all, A-L-L, the all. The all is that the eye and the picture that it sees, the ear and the sound, the nose and the smell, the tongue and the taste, the body and the tactile sensation. That is the all, and that is the world. The all is the world. So the world is nothing but the six senses and the sensations that are stimulated at the six senses. So someone who has penetrated the world, because this is what the translation says, has penetrated the world, Loka Vidu, means he's penetrated reality and no longer is fooled by the world, because the world is nothing but the all, which is the eye and the picture, the nose and the smell, the ear and the sound, the taste and the tongue, and the body and the tactile sensation. Does that make sense? Or would you add anything to that?
You're pretty much saying that when we have learned to understand this world as the stimulations, the experience that we have of these stimulations we receive through the senses of this body that we have here.
Yes.
That is what we think is the world.
Yes. And someone who has penetrated the world has seen this completely and realized,
like the Buddha, yeah,
like the Buddha, and has realized he has realized reality, basically. So that's why Loka Vidu does not mean to know the world. It means to has penetrated the world. Then we have Anuttaro-Purisa-Damma Sarathi. And here Dhamma is not with an H. It's D-A-M-M-A. So it's not Dhamma like the teachings of the Buddha or experience. So here Anuttaro means unequaled, meaning you cannot surpass this. It's unsurpassable. There's no one even greater than this. This is the greatest. Anuttaro, the unequaled. Purisa-Damma means trainer of character, of the character. Purisa is like a person. So the unsurpassed, Sarathi means a trainer of people or personalities. Here it says what is the English translation?
It says the unequaled trainer of character.
Yes. And you mentioned how you have changed so much since you have learned the Dhamma from Bhante Kalita.
I sure did.
Do you think your character has transformed?
Well, yeah, I feel like personally, I was in my past, I feel like I was more, I had more fear. I would always be fearful of things much more than I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I had no control over my thoughts or my body to a certain extent. But now through the practice of meditation, breathing meditation and metta, I have come to realize that I do have control over it. I don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily able to maintain it constantly, but I can practice it through meditation, through awareness.
Yes. And it's possible.
Yes, it is definitely possible because I tried it and it worked.
Yes. That is why, Joana, that it is the unequaled trainer of character. Because even to the person who says it's impossible, this guy can train you. this extraordinary individual can train you. Why? Because we're going to see why, because of the Dhamma, but that's what it means. Anuttaro means unequaled or unsurpassed. Purisa-Damma means a person to be trained. Sarathi. So then it goes, Sata Deva Manusanam. Sata means teacher or educator. And Deva Manusanam. What do you think that means, Joana? It means
the educator of both human and celestial beings.
Yes. So devas, we talked about, they're like the angels, celestial beings, or aliens.
Deva Manusanam. Devas and celestial beings. So Deva is the devas, Manusanam are the celestial beings?
No. Deva is the celestial being. Manu, like human.
Oh, it's the humans.
Yeah. Manu Sanam is the humans. So the Buddha trained humans and celestial beings. We mentioned earlier that A certain part of the day he would train the lay people. Another time of the day he would train the monastics. And then who would he train at the late night?
Do you remember the time of day that Pantikolita told us that the devas would come to him?
Yeah, it was like after 2 a.m., I believe.
From 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., right?
I don't recall what the time window was, but I think it was after 2 a.m. Could have been to like 6 a.m. Who knows?
Yeah, I thought that was awesome.
So, humans can awaken, and actually, devas can also awaken. They have the ability.
They can? I thought only humans could awaken.
So it's tough. It's a tough. It's all speculation here, but the devas have cognitive abilities even beyond the human being. As the human being evolved, its cognitive abilities are beyond the other animals, right?
Yes.
Well, the devas are also beyond the human.
Oh, Juan, that is something I was thinking about recently. I would like think about it, and I was just wondering, I was like, how is it that the devas can be, in what manner can the devas be more advanced than the humans, right? I understand that it's like an intellect, I don't know, maybe like it's just they have a higher intelligence, right? But I was like, what is higher intelligence? Like higher than the Buddha? What was it about the Buddha's intelligence that made it superior? And I was like, well, he was not dominated by his emotions. So then I was like, does this mean that the devas are not dominated by emotions?
I think depends. So like certain devas, because there's like 16 realms, heavenly realms. And I think the devas from the lower realms are emotional. And the higher up you go, the less emotional it gets. And Brahma, the Maha Brahma, the president, um, he is like one of the highest purified minds, but then the Buddha is beyond him. And even his Arahant disciples are beyond the Maha Brahma because they completely eliminated emotions. But the gods do have, the gods, the angels, devas, they do have emotions. It's just to varying degrees, it seems to me.
Are you speculating?
Yeah, because I haven't met a deva, and I don't want to meet a deva. I don't want to.
Well, I was imagining that what you're telling us is from the readings you've come across.
Yeah,
like the
definitely.
suttas.
From the suttas, the devas are fighting all the time. The devas are falling in love. The devas are and if we take, the Buddha has said in many suttas that from the time the Bodhisattva awakes, becomes a Buddha, to the time the Buddha takes his parinibbana, the Buddha only speaks truth, speaks reality. And not only that, he speaks reality that he has experienced himself. So if we take that, then yeah, this is what I've heard. This is what I've read.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, definitely they have emotions, but they have the ability to awaken. It's just that, it's like someone who wants to, if someone's in Las Vegas partying, drinking, are they going to want to wake up? Are they going to have even be thinking about Dhamma?
Oh, I remember why I thought they could not awaken, because I think I heard Bhantasana Vihari say that the devas experience much less pain than humans do. So because of that factor, they are less motivated to awaken.
Yeah.
Because the majority of the sensations and experiences they have are highly pleasurable.
Yeah. That's why it's amazing with when people who are on top of the world give up the household life and become monastics, take up the homeless life. And that's, we can point to our own Bhante Sanata Vihari. He was on top of the world. And he gave it all up. He sold his house, gave away his car, broke up with his girlfriend. He had a career. He had he cultivated his body to the highest point. Looked like a superhero, and he gave it up. So it is possible. I mean, he was living like a deva. We joke sometimes, and it is possible to give that up for even something higher, because there's nothing higher. Like there's a verse in the Dhammapada that says that the pleasure of a deva, of a god, is not even worth 1/16 of the happiness that a Sotapanna experiences. And that's just the first level of awakening.
A Sotapanna is a monk that is
it's any individual who is a once returner, meaning, they're gonna become awakened within the next 6 lives. They say you've entered the stream. The stream goes down to nirvana. No matter what, you're heading downstream. Like a log that's on the stream is going to reach the ocean, and sometimes it might get caught by like some reeds or something obstructing the water. It might get caught. That's why it comes back to the human realm up to 6 times. But at a certain point, it will reach the ocean. And the pleasure and happiness of a god is not even worth 1/16 of the happiness of a Sotapanna. So that's why Bhante Sanata Vihari's name, Sanata Vihari means like dwelling, or a place, to the one who dwells, a dwelling. And Sanata means richness. So Bhante Kalita, when he gave Bhante Sanata Vihari his name, he said that people thought that he was rich already, but that by becoming a monk and giving up the household life and taking up the holy life, he has really attained. He's really dwelling in real richness, and that's the etymology of his name, Sanata Vihari. Because the opposite of richness is anatta, which means like being poor. And this is not the same anatta as like no self. It's like a different spelling. But yes, and so Sata Deva Manusanam is a teacher of human and celestial beings. And then it says Buddho, which means awake. Buddho, because here it doesn't say Buddha, which means awakened one. Buddho is like just saying awake. And Bhagavati, and sublime. That's why I said that Bhagava you can call the sublime one. So the one thing, Joana, that sticks out to me from the salutation to the Buddha is the Vijjacarana Sampano. And I think we were talking right now before the podcast that I once asked Bhante Kalita about what Vijjacarana Sampano means, which means the fully conscious behavior. I wanted to know what that means. Like, what is he talking about there? What is fully conscious behavior? And Bhante Kalita has the answers to everything. There's no answer. He might tell you like, well, I'll tell you next week. But he has the answer, or he at least knows where to look. And this one time during the meditation class, I asked him, what does Vijjacarana mean? And he went to the back and he grabbed the Majjhima Nikaya, the book, the sutra book, the middle length discourses, and he opened it to a certain page and then gave it to me. He said, please read. And I had to read it for the whole room of meditators. And I read the Majjhima Nikaya number 53 called the Sekha Sutta. And here the Buddha was giving a talk to a bunch of people, I think he was giving a talk to monastics, but it was getting to the late night. And he was giving the talks to the Sakyans, so the people of his hometown. And it was getting late. And then he spent most of the night educating, encouraging, firing up, and inspiring the Sakyans with a Dhamma talk. But then he told Venerable Ananda, speak about the practicing trainee, the one in training to the Sakyans, if as you feel inspired. My back is sore, and I'm going to stretch it. So the Buddha, I think you know this, Joana. I mean, we've said it a lot, so maybe you've heard it. But the Buddha had a bad back. Do you know why he had a bad back?
Yes, because in one of his past lives, he broke a man's back while he was wrestling with him. So, because of that action he took in the past, it was his karma. He was paying his karma with a bad back.
It was the result of his karma. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. So he was a wrestler. And I think that's cool because I watch pro wrestling. So like, I think it's cool that the Buddha was a wrestler and his signature move was lifting them to the top and then breaking their back with his knee. You know, that's a wrestling move.
That's horrible. Wrestlers actually do that?
Yeah, it's
that should be illegal.
Well, pro wrestlers do that. So they do it as best without trying to hurt the other guy completely. But it hasn't happened like in a UFC match, not that I know of. But yeah, he did that. The other famous scene of someone breaking their back is that's how Bane, the villain of Batman, broke Batman's back. He lifted him up with two hands and then slammed him on his back on his knee.
Wait, Batman broke his back?
Yeah, Batman broke his back and he had to recover and come back and beat Bane.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Bane was a luchador. Who was taking like this super serum to make him super strong. But yeah, so Ananda started teaching him, and he told the Mahanama, the Sakyan, who's a famous Sakyan, he said, Mahanama, a supernormal disciple, he's describing the Vijjacarana. So what's interesting, Joana, is that Charana goes second when we say Vijjacarana, but in reality, in the practice, the Charana goes first. Charana means your behavior, the way you behave, and the Vijja is the fully consciousness, conscious of reality, of experience.
By the consciousness of reality and experience, do you mean the awareness?
Yeah, like super knowledge. Super knowledge meaning like the type of awareness that breaks all the fetters, all the shackles.
Oh, okay.
So Vijja really should go second, but we only say it Vijjacarana because Vijja is a smaller word, so we say it first. But in reality, and I always tell you, Joana, when we're reading the Pali, that it's backwards in English. So
wait. Did you just say that Pali grammar has a rule in which the smaller word must go first, regardless of
I don't know
if
that's the rule, but that's how Bhante Kalita told me that's why we say it Vijjacarana.
Oh, that's interesting.
But here, Ananda tells us the 15 actions, the 15 qualities of the charanas, the 15 charanas. The 15 charanas, the 15 types of behaviors is one who is accomplished in ethics, meaning has a perfected sila. And then what is the second thing?
Samadhi.
No. What is, here when he's giving the list of the 15 things, one is accomplished in sila, ethics.
Oh, and then one is guards the second one is that the person guards the sense doors.
Yes, which you found very interesting, right?
Yes. Can I tell the story?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I was sharing an experience with Juan. I went to TJ Maxx and I was standing in line, and there was this man behind me, and he seemed very eager to move ahead of the line. And I was like, oh, he's probably in a rush. So I was like, maybe I should move forward a little bit so the line can move along faster, or so that he could see I'm not like falling asleep, And then eventually, like, we move forward in the line a little bit. And then like 5 minutes later, the guy walks up to the lady in front of me and he starts flirting with her. Mm-hmm. And like, it seemed as though he was like begging her for her attention, and he was asking her for her time. He wanted to spend time with her. And the lady, she like kindly told him, no, I have someone, I have a partner. And then he asked her, do you know where I can find, people, company? And she made a suggestion. And then like the way that he approached her was as though like he had known her, like if he knew who she was, like if they were already friends or something.
Yeah.
And then
It was I'm googling here like a bird mating dance. It's like he was a bird doing his dance, trying to like win her over.
yeah, and then she turned him down and she was really nice about it. And then he like just walked back to his cart and kept looking at junk, like just kept shopping on the little aisle, like if nothing had happened.
Yes, and that I told you that reminded me of something Bhante Punaji said, that he said, like, have you ever seen a elephant become aroused? He said that's a very funny picture. He says that all that it takes is for the elephant to see the image of a female elephant, and it just becomes aroused. And that's what happened to that guy at TJ Maxx that you witnessed, huh?
Yeah, he became aroused by the woman, and as soon as she walked away, he just completely forgot about her. And
Yeah,
he just went back to shopping.
went back to his docile state.
Yeah, to the grazing state.
Yeah, and that's what got you interested in this second charana, which is
okay. So when I was reading this with you, okay, so this sutta is saying, Mahanama, a noble disciple, is accomplished in ethics, guards the sense doors. So when I read guards the sense doors, I was remembering how like the elephant was literally, this is a real story. An elephant was, during a science experiment, an elephant was shown a picture of a female elephant, and the elephant became aroused just because of an image.
yeah, and he wasn't guarding his senses, huh?
Exactly. So just like this human man became aroused just by seeing this lady at the store, uh, that means that monks are aware of this effect that the visual stimuli has on our mind, on the human mind. And because they are aware of that, of the power of the visual stimuli, they guard their visual stimuli, and they do not
Become unconscious.
dwell. They do not dwell on the factors that
Yeah,
they are trying, the stimulations that there is no, that they're trying to avoid,
yeah.
because they want to maintain awareness and control of their mind. They don't want to be like, they
They don't
don't
want
want
to.
to be,
They don't want to arouse emotions and become unconscious.
yeah.
And that's why here the Buddha says, and how does a supernormal disciple guard the sense doors? When a supernormal disciple sees a sight with the eyes, they don't get caught up on the features or details.
Yes.
And the same thing for the nose, the smell.
Wait, can I read the rest? If the faculty of sight were left unrestrained, bad, unskillful qualities of desire and aversion would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of sight and achieving its restraint. When they hear a sound with their ears, when they smell an odor with their nose, when they taste a flavor with their tongue, when they feel a touch with their body, and when they know a thought with their mind, they don't get caught up in the features and the details. If the faculty of mind were left unrestrained, bad and skillful qualities of desire and aversion would become overwhelming. For this reason, they practice restraint, protecting the faculty of mind and achieving its restraint. That's how a noble disciple guards the sense doors.
Sadhu, sadhu, yes. It's deep, huh?
Yes, especially if you like really stop to think about it.
Yeah. So I had asked Bhante Kalita, what are the charanas? The charanas means the behaviors that lead to full consciousness, complete consciousness. And these are the 14. That was the second one, guard the senses. What's the third one?
Hold on. And is dedicated to
No.
wakefulness.
Uh,
Eats in moderation.
Yes, eats in moderation. And someone who eats in moderation, they do the chanting that the monks do every time they eat, but they're chanting because they're reflecting that they're eating not for fun, not for indulgence, adornment, or decoration, but only to sustain the body and avoid harm and to help with the spiritual practice. In this way, they shall put an end to old discomfort and not give rise to new discomfort, and they will live blamelessly and at ease. That's the third charana. And the fourth charana is, like you said, dedicated to wakefulness. That's the translation we see in front of us. But it just means live fully aware. Here it says, when the supernormal disciple practices walking and sitting meditation by day, purifying their mind from obstacles. Here, Joanna, purifying their mind means literally relaxing and calming their mind. Purifying means relaxing and calming. It's like tranquilizing, tranquility. And in the evening, they continue to practice walking and sitting meditation. In the middle of the night, they lie down in the lion's posture on the right side, placing one foot on top of the other, introspective and aware. And they focus. They focus on the time of getting up. In the last part of the night, they get up and continue practice their walking and sitting meditation, purifying their mind from obstacles. Here, when it says focus on the time of getting up, the Buddha was talking about that if you decide what time you're going to wake up, you can actually wake up. The body will know at that time.
I've heard someone else say that, but it was one of my college friends' mother. She said her mom was a fertility therapist, and she was very disciplined. And she said that her mom would always try to teach her and tell her that you don't need an alarm clock. You just tell yourself, I'm going to wake up at this time, and then you just do it. Yep. And to her, it was a mystery. But when I heard her say that, I was like, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very interesting. Now when I wake up, if I just immediately, I'm like, I overslept. I could tell already. And then I look at the time, I'm like, damn it. And then sometimes I'll be like, wake up. I'm like, no, I still have an hour and a half. And I look at the time, I'm like, yes, I still have an hour and a half. So that's 4, because there's 15 charanas, 15 behaviors. So far we did accomplished in ethics, which accomplished in ethics basically means someone who lives by the disciplinary code, and they live properly, seeing the danger in the slightest faults, meaning they don't backslide, they don't mess up. They always live according to the code. And then it says, after the first 4 of the accomplished in ethics, guarding the sense doors, eating in moderation, and dedicated to wakefulness, meaning being attentive at all times, then it says they have 7 good qualities. And someone who has 7 good qualities, so it says they have the supernormal disciple has confidence in the Buddha's awakening, and they go through to the salutation of the Buddha. Here you see, Joanna, that this is the salutation of the Buddha. Mm-hmm. And then it says they have, here it says conscience, but it's talking about, it says they have conscience and they exercise prudence. They're talking about Hiri and Otapa. Hiri is reluctance to do unskillful things, and prudence is really talking about Otapa, which means they have repentance on if they had any bad, unskillful behavior. And then they said,
so you mean like when they do something bad physically, or if they have a bad thought or a bad speech, that they confess their errors to someone?
Well, the monks do meet up once a month and confess to each other, and they ask for forgiveness from each other. But they don't. The repentance doesn't really mean confession, although it's probably best if you do confess because you'll feel a lot better. And in the Buddha, they always say, like when you confess, they say it is a gain in your spiritual practice to confess, because you've recognized the unskillfulness of that behavior, and now you are determined to not commit that behavior again. So this is a good thing. But here it just means repentance means you just you repent, meaning you are determined not to do that again.
Okay, so you admit to yourself that you did something wrong, and then you state the you create and you aspire to not do it again.
That's right. And I'm looking up the definition of repentance. An action of repenting, sincere regret or remorse, although this is not an emotional thing. So here, having a reluctance, meaning not the reluctance to do bad things, that's the fifth charana. Having repentance of any unwholesome action in body, speech, or mind, that's the sixth charana. The seventh is they are learned and remembering and keeping what they have learned. These teachings are good in the beginning, good in the middle, good in the end, meaningful, well phrased, describing the spiritual practice that is entirely full and pure. They are very learned in such teachings, remembering them, reinforcing them by recitation, mentally scrutinizing them, meaning examining the meaning, and comprehending them theoretically. So that's the seventh charana. And then the eighth is live with energy aroused. Here it just means like with the cognitive strength to eliminate unskillful thoughts and cultivating skillful thoughts. That's the eighth charana. And then the 9 is introspection or sati. Yeah, here it says mindful, but sati, to be introspective and alert. And here it says that when you're introspective and alert, it says you can remember and recall what was said and done long ago. Remember, that's what we talked about, how you generate sati, you can recall your past lives.
Yes.
And then the 10th is they're wise. Or that's actually the 11th, that they're wise. They have wisdom of the arising and passing away, which is supernormal, penetrative, and leads to the complete ending of suffering. That's how a supernormal disciple has the 7 qualities. So we had the reluctance, the repentance, being well learned and versed in the teachings, having the energy and strength to give up unskillful thoughts and cultivate skillful thoughts. They are introspective and they are wise. They penetrate with their intellect, the arising and passing away, which means, we talked about everything comes and goes. Everything is arising and passing away.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last 4 of the 15 charanas is each of the 4 jhanas. First jhana, second jhana, third jhana, fourth jhana. With these are the 15 behaviors that lead to the Vijja. Vijja is fully conscious. And that's why the Buddha, in the salutation to the Buddha, was Vijjacarana Sampanno, fully conscious behavior. And that's how the trainee, one in training, that's how he behaves. Man, we spent a long time and we barely got into the salutation of the Buddha. Maybe we can finish the salutation of the Dhamma and the Sangha for another episode.
That's a good idea, Juan.
Yes. I think we've given the listeners a lot to think about already. And
just make a note. We're going to talk about what in the next episode?
We'll go over the salutation to the Dhamma and the salutation to the Sangha, because we wanted to point out that the respect and paying homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha is very important in order to continue the thriving of the Dhamma. And it's not some superficial thing of just chanting to chant, like people go to church and they get the books and start singing just because they have to, because they're at church. No, we're actually reflecting on the meaning. and the qualities of the Buddha and the meaning and the qualities of the Dhamma, which we're going to do next time, and the meaning and qualities of the Sangha. The Sangha one is very interesting.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll end it there. And Joana, any last words for our listeners?
Well, if there's anyone out there who hasn't tried bowing for personal reasons, if it's fear or anxiety or anything like that, I would just encourage them to like challenge themselves, because I feel like everything that we're afraid of, it feels really nice to just face it and just like overcome it and recognize how silly the fears that we have are.
Yes.
And also, I just want to say thank you to you, Juan, for helping explain all these important parts of the practice when it comes to the chantings and the precepts and the meanings behind bowing and paying respect to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha.
Yes. And that's all because of homage. All homage is due to the Buddha. Because of him, we're all here, and I'm still just reverberating what he has taught us. Thank you, Joana, and thank you for endeavoring into this vast space of infinite Dhamma. It's fun to talk to you about it and to learn. You always point out things that I don't see, and so I always appreciate talking to you. And thank you to all the listeners. We have a loyal group, and we appreciate every one of you who listens, all our friends who listen, and our teachers who might listen. And we'll be back with the explanation of the Salutation to the Dhamma, which it's interesting. It's going to be important because, we saw the Salutation to the Buddha is not just praising him. They were talking about all the qualities that we're going to aspire to attain, and just explaining just one of these qualities, the fully conscious behavior, we saw how intricate it was. There was 15 behaviors that totaled this, and they were deep. And it makes sense, right, Joana, how someone becomes a fully conscious behavior if they're practicing like the sutra we just read?
I feel like the more I learn about Buddhism and the practices, the more I see the connections, how all the teachings are connected, and how these teachings help a person to cultivate their mind and to actually reach that point where they become fully aware.
Yes, and now you know the new word Sekha, and now Joana, you are a Sekha. You are a trainee, one in training.
How do you spell it?
It is like here where my cursor.
Sekha.
Yes, Sekha.
You know what I'm definitely going to remember?
What?
Vijjacarana.
Hell yeah. Just like how I remembered it fully thanks to Bhante Kalita when he made me read this sutra to explain Vijjacarana. Perfect. We could probably go deep into all the qualities, but then it would probably be like a 10 episode series.
Yeah, I think we gotta cut. We gotta end it here now, Juan.
Of course. So stay tuned for next week. We're gonna go in depth into the Dhamma, and it gets really, I want to say really trippy, but it's within nature. Yeah, that's a good tease for our listeners. You'll want to come back and see what the heck we're talking about. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope you're all well, happy, comfortable, and peaceful, being safe, and social distancing. Here in Buddhism, as a Buddhist practice, that's no hard feat. That's an easy feat, FEAT, and we can do it. And thank goodness we can use the internet for good. That's what me and Joana are doing. We're recording via the internet. And, we were able to look up the words of Jesus, look up the sutras all immediately. So we're very blessed. So social distance and, look on internet for good things. And thank you, everyone. Until next time, Suki Hotu.
What should be done by one who's skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may your beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with a life a child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to false views, the pure-hearted one